it's Felicity from GetYourRockOut, here with a couple of the guys from 65 Days of Static. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, pretty good, thanks.
And we're here at Sonisphere Festival, and you guys are playing quite a lot later on tonight.
Yes.
I mean, it's a late set time, but I think it's gonna be an absolutely cracking set. Are you looking forward to it, or are you just focusing on press for the moment?
No, we're really looking forward to it. Not focusing on press at all, actually. Yeah,
That's what we like to hear.
it's nice to come back, and I think it should be a really good. It's really exciting to go on late after the Prodigy, and hopefully continue what they start.
Fantastic. And they're such a good band, the Prodigy, as well. I just love them live.
Yeah.
You're going to have such a fantastic audience.
Great.
So,
Yeah, I think it must have been like 10 years or more since I last saw them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know how much we'll get to see of them, to tell you the truth, because
You should
I
be able
guess
to
we'll
watch
be
them
getting
from the
ready.
back of stage, maybe?
Well, it's a different stage, so we've got to get over there. But
are you on like opposite end of the...
Something like that,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's
We'll
frustrating.
It'll
try
be
and
all
catch
right.
some of it, at least.
Yeah,
You can see 5 minutes while you're
we'll be able to hear
driving
it.
to stage.
Yeah, yeah,
Wave at them.
yeah.
I'm sure they'll be pleased to see us.
So yeah, I mean, you guys have just recently released a song. I mean, it was so cool, and it was all done like through code that you could then play in your browser, which was brilliant and like so much fun. I mean, did you actually think that was going to work when you started it?
Well, it was more of a test to see if we could do it and if it would get any kind of reaction. It was really nice that it did. And
Didn't you break the site that it was on because you had that many people going to check it out?
yeah, we did, which is embarrassing in one way to this, like, whoever the insanely clever guy is who built the program to be able to do that. So I sent him an apology, but it was really nice, yeah. And it's just good. It's good to try different things, different ways to make music, and nice to share those things with people quickly and simply.
Definitely. I mean, it did it work really well. I mean, would you consider kind of doing that kind of thing again in the future?
Well, maybe, yeah. I think this sort of live coding thing it's a lot. I mean, we're just like chancers who've tried our hand at it, but there's people who do it properly who. I think that there's like, club nights, and they make this kind of dance music and they project the code behind them, and as they're typing it, it's creating the music, which sounds great. I've not been to one yet. I mean, it's pretty geeky, but then so am I. So
That sounds absolutely incredible, actually.
yeah. So like we didn't write that live. It took weeks or a week, to work out how to do it.
I mean, really impressive. And I think, I don't know, I think that your music would kind of attract the kind of people that would find that kind of thing fascinating, which is always a good thing.
Yes, yeah. It's definitely a 65 kind of approach to doing things strangely.
To be honest, I mean, there are so many people that do the same thing over and over and over again. It's such a refreshing change to see so much different happening. And I think that you guys could never be accused of not doing things differently.
I'm just working that sentence out.
Sorry. It's got to that stage of the day where my sentences are making literally no sense whatsoever. That's always a good sign. Sorry, people climbing behind us right there. But yeah, I mean, obviously we're here at Sonisphere. Are you guys going to be here all weekend?
No, we're going home after the show tonight.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite sad.
For who?
Is there nobody around that kind of the weekend that you're particularly keen on seeing?
Well, we've got things to do, unfortunately. If we were to stick around, we'd probably see the Deftones, or Therapy should be pretty cool. Yeah, but no, we've got to get back. Continue the master plan to take over the world.
Always an important thing.
Yeah.
And you guys, your latest album was out in September last year, and that's right.
Yeah, I think so.
Just look of
I said
confusion on your
October
face.
earlier, but I think it was
Oh, was it?
September.
It was around that time anyway.
Yeah, so September,
Yeah.
October last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the response I saw to it was absolutely fantastic. I think a lot of people really, really liked it. I mean, were you happy with the kind of reaction that you had from it, both like press and fans?
It had some of the best press that we've ever had, ever, and it still sold about 15 copies, which I think is why we should all be quite scared about the realities of trying to get music made. Is getting increasingly difficult when there's actually, it's very hard to make any money in doing it. So we were very happy with the with the reception. I think it's the best record we've made, and hopefully we'll make a better one. But if we don't, really glad to have been part of making it together. I think it was the end of a long decade of like learning how to play music together.
And is there a chance that you might not make another together?
No, I think we're really excited to make another record together.
I guess there's always that chance,
I think we're the sort of band that if we felt like we had nothing left to well, I think you just said, there's lots of people making the same thing over and over again. I think if we ever felt that we were doing that, or that we'd lost the reasons of the drive to make unique music and to progress as a band, that we'd probably stop and do something else anyway. So, but right now we're pretty excited about writing together. Yeah. So I'm sure there'll be another one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's difficult. I mean, going back to the whole selling thing, I think that people are finding that you just can't sell anything unless you're touring nowadays, and it's, I don't know, I think it's quite a terrifying state, and I think the music industry as a whole is going to change unbelievably so over the next few years when it comes to that, because people just aren't making the money from records coming out anymore. It just doesn't exist. It's not something that really seems to happen.
How do you think it will change?
I honestly don't know. I don't know whether there's going to be a lot more focus on touring, and people are basically, they're not counting on an album to make money, they're counting on merch and they're counting on ticket sales.
Yeah. I think ticket sales are down as well now.
I think that depends on the tickets.
Yeah.
Because like the Jaeger sponsored tours that they did a couple of years ago with like Skindred and Therapy, I mean that was a Jaeger subsidised thing, and you found that as soon as ticket prices were vaguely affordable, they were selling out within hours.
Sure.
I think that was Skindred, Therapy and Black Spiders for that tour, and it sold out exceptionally quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know whether there'll be more stuff like that going on, and people pushing the live aspects and the actual physical merch aspect.
And you think
can't
that sold
download.
well because the ticket prices were relatively cheap?
I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah, I mean, when you look at, like Russia charging like 85 quid a ticket nowadays, and obviously, Russia's still going to have a fan base whenever they tour.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Nine Inch Nails, they toured recently. I think it was about 65 quid a head.
So the suggestion
Manchester,
is really
it hadn't sold well at all.
So the suggestion is possibly that we've commodified music to an extent that's not viable for its future.
I think possibly. I think the fact that we're supposedly in a recession is not helping, and people are more worried about the kind of future of the country and their own job security in a way that they weren't 20 years ago. I mean, people used to get a job and they stuck at that job, and now it's redundancies left, right, and centre, and 0-hour contracts. And I think that kind of thing is always going to put people off spending a lot of money on going to a gig.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, Felicity. It's very interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. I probably agree with you. I don't think I'm that well informed about it, but it sounds like that might be what's going on, certainly, yeah.
I don't know, I think with an album, because people can download it for free, if they're skint, they'll download the album for free and use the money to go to a show.
Right.
Whereas when people have more disposable income, they'd be like, I may as well buy the album and go to a show.
Sure.
But like physical merch, then when you get to shows like t-shirt sales, you can't really download t-shirts.
No.
And like whenever you wear that shirt, you've got the memory of a gig, and so people are more likely to buy that.
Sure, yes. And there does seem to be a tendency to sort of wear band merch as being part of that whole thing, which was probably quite an innocent thing to begin with, wasn't it? But it's certainly the music industry's taken advantage of that to sell people quite a lot of...
The music industry take advantage? What? Never.
Right.
But do you think that's a bad thing? I mean, if obviously the price is, going back to Rush, I think it's like 80 quid a hoodie nowadays, and admittedly, maybe won't.
I find it hard to see the world in terms of good and bad these days. I don't think it's great the extent to which our entire culture is monetised. No. I bought lots of t-shirts as a teenager that made me really, really happy, and I still have some of them in a drawer somewhere. So I think there's a line, definitely, isn't there? I think things are pretty silly out there right now, yeah. But I'm also in a band that sells t-shirts, so I don't really have a leg to stand on. And actually, we've done whole tours that existed on having to sell a certain number of t-shirts to pay for that tour. So,
yeah.
And I'm sure there's lots more bands out there in worse conditions than us. It's a tough one, really.
It's the same as a tour being subsidised by Jägermeister, really. I mean, the end game to that is as bad as funding a tour through T-shirts, because it's just like it's the music being subsumed by a much less helpful mechanism.
I don't know whether it's ever possible for that not to happen, if I'm honest. I don't know whether any of our societies at the moment, no matter what country you're in, is at the kind of pure extent where that's not going to happen to some degree or other.
To be capitalism, I suppose.
I mean,
at its finest.
There was no music industry 60, 70 years ago, so I think things, we can't really imagine what might change. I suspect, though, as things continue to change on a global political scale, the state of the music industry is going to quite quickly become the least of our worries as a species. So, it's probably an early metaphor for.
It's the canary in the mine.
It's the canary in the mine of our futures. So, yeah.
But saying that, I do think that actually in times of crisis, actually people stop focusing on the big stuff to a greater degree, and they think actually we're all a bit screwed. Actually, we want to spend more time on things that make us happy because we're much more aware of our own mortality. And so I think that maybe the worse the world gets, the more people turn to music because it offers an escape from the state of the world.
The problem is that we don't really want people to escape from the state of the world. We want people to look outward and kind of do something to change the world together.
Most of your population aren't going to do that. Most people just want to sit back and pretend it's okay.
Well, that's very pessimistic, Felicity.
I am a slight pessimist. I have to give you that one. But then again, you look at people like that. What's her face? Is it Josie or Jodie Cunningham? That horrendous girl. She was, she got the NHS to pay for a boob job and now gets them to pay for taxis for her children to school because of the trauma caused by getting on a bus after having had a boob job. And
sure.
then
the problem with that is it's anecdotal evidence of a very specific and one-off example of someone taking advantage of something, whereas actually there's far better examples of a political elite taking advantage of millions of people regularly through legislation, backdoor legislation. So I'd prefer not to focus on examples like that. They seem to me to be horror stories that are propagated to distract from the real issues. But that's just my opinion.
I would agree with you to some extent, but I do think that kids growing up today, when they look, when you look at what kids actually want in life, they don't want to grow up and have a career. They want to grow up and be famous, and they want to grow up and be rich.
Yes.
And I think that when you've got a population like that, you're never going to get any kind of society that is outward facing and is trying to do things for the good. It's just an exceptionally self-centered society that basically focuses on pleasing itself.
You're not wrong.
I'm not sure that's the fault of the population now.
But surely it's a fault of the population that basically serve their own needs and don't do anything.
But if that's what everyone was doing, of course. But I don't know how you could possibly say that about.
I don't think that everybody. No, I don't think that everybody is doing it. But I think as a country, we're turning more and more and more self-centered and more focused on completely ludicrous things. And I think the celebrity aspect and the money aspect, I do think that as a society we're focusing on that a lot more than we do on the political side of things. I mean, I know that a lot of my peer group from certain aspects of life and people that I grew up with, they have no consideration for what's going on around them, and it's that they're completely concerned with themselves and their own lives, and they just don't care. They don't vote, they don't research anything, they don't particularly read the news unless it's some kind of gossip, and they basically just listen to anything that they're told and just accept it as read.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just a massive cynic. That is always a possibility.
No. Well, I mean, I don't think it's quite hard. It's quite hard to generalise, really. And all of those things, even if those are true for all of those people, there's reasons why they are that way. If they're not voting, it's because there's no one to vote for. If they're not watching the news, it's because the news is filled with lies all across the spectrum, and that's quite easy to see, and everyone knows it, even if it remains unspoken on the telly, because the telly is promoting the latest X Factor or whatever, and so people switch off from that. The people are maybe like the symptom, but they're not the cause.
So you think that it's that way round rather than that the people don't care about that, and then politicians and news stories take advantage?
Absolutely.
Society has always been engineered by a political media class, always, for hundreds of years. That's the struggle to stop that from happening. People aren't...
Well, people are fundamentally pretty decent,
Absolutely.
Otherwise we'd never have got this far in the first place.
interesting. You don't think it's because people are ruthless that we've got as far as we have?
No, I think the ruthless people have put a structure into place which allows them to climb to the top quite easily because of their ruthlessness, but that's not representative of the world at large.
I like your attitude, I do. I think and I really, really hope that you're right on that. I don't know whether I have just turned far too cynical far too quickly. But I think I just can't see how it's ever going to change, and how it's going to change anytime soon for the better.
It's a shame.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Depressing world to live in. This has got exceptionally deep for an interview at Sonisphere.
Really?
I must admit.
Has it? Oh.
Yeah, it turned into
What do you talk about with the other bands?
I'll give you 3 guesses.
Music?
Why? Well, I'm impressed.
Right.
No, I know that you have another interview to do after this, and so I should probably kind of think about letting you guys go at some point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to get Sai coming over here and shouting at me and just being like, "What are you doing?" But just kind of quickly to wrap it up. I mean, obviously, we're going to see you guys later on, which is just going to be fantastic. And are we going to be seeing you touring any point soon?
Based on the past 10 years, I'd say there's a 50% chance of touring. Yeah.
Brilliant, that's a highly informative answer, thank you.
No problem.
But I mean, it really has been an absolute pleasure, and I could carry on doing this all day, so I'm sure that after a couple of drinks at some point this weekend I'll meet you in the bar. Oh no, because you're going, aren't you?
Yeah.
Wow, that is a sadness. In that case, next time I see you, we'll carry this on.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for the
Thank
tea.
you.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.